Okay, on the evening walk. I didn't get face tracking, so I'll get that going. I'm on the evening walk here, and so I worked early in the morning, so I'm taking an evening walk here. And I just wanted to talk about 3 words: benevolent, basic, and boring. These are 3 of my favorite words that start with the letter B. Let's talk about this one. Now let's start with the word benevolent. Benevolent means being kind, having charity, being charitable, or having a charitable spirit, a spirit of giving, you might say, being helpful. So benevolence is a big thing. If you care, if you are benevolent, then you're going to have that attitude of giving, that attitude of caring for others. Someone who is benevolent might do things like volunteer at a soup kitchen and doing other things to help in their community. It's just having that spirit of charity. That is benevolent or benevolence. Now let's talk about basics. Or I said basic, but basics. Let's take it to plural. What I like to use here is kind of a sports analogy. Often when I played sports, we would talk about the basics or the fundamentals. Let's use the example of basketball. I played basketball for a while in junior high. And the basics of basketball are dribbling, passing, and shooting. Now, before you even started to put plays together and things like that, you started with that. Before you ever got fancy and did something in a game like, pass a ball behind your back or something like that, you start with the basics. You don't begin there. You begin with dribbling, passing, and shooting. In school, what are the basics or the fundamentals? Well, they're reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay? So that's kind of a little bit of defining basic. Now, the last one here is boring. No one wants to be called boring. That's not something that's thought of as great, is boring. But I'm going to flip the script on boring a little bit and think about boring this way. Boring, to me, is the absence of drama, the absence of volatility. I've watched a few times shows that are these reality shows, these housewife shows, the Housewives of Atlanta or the Housewives of Beverly Hills. And what I notice in those shows is that there is a lot of drama and a lot of volatility. These characters are having serious arguments with each other. And these arguments are crazy and dramatic. And I know that draws eyeballs to these shows, but it's not very productive in terms of the relationships that they have with each other. And so, to me, boring, to flip the script, is a positive thing. It's the absence of volatility, the absence of drama. Okay. And now that's the last one, boring. But what does all of that have to do with finances? What does all of that have to do with building your future and building wealth? Well, let's start with boring. Okay. I talk about boring being the absence of drama and volatility. And I often talk about investing in a boring S&P 500 fund or a boring S&P 500 index fund. And really, the boring isn't even in there. It's just an S&P 500 index fund. But I like to say boring at the beginning of it because it lacks the volatility. It lacks the drama. So you can kind of start your investing journey and just automate it and relax. I even like better, I personally use a total stock market fund. And now, like I said, it's boring. I very seriously doubt that you would go to a dinner party and be pulling someone aside and telling them, hey, I got to tell you about my total stock market index fund. Now, you may end up talking about things that are more exciting, like a single stock. A lot of people are talking about NVIDIA now because of AI and how it's taking off right now. Or they may talk about their Tesla stock or their Apple stock or something like that, a single stock, or Bitcoin or something like that. But a total stock market fund is a little bit more boring. It's a little less dramatic. But I'm going to suggest that's a good thing. And I suggest keeping it boring because you don't want to get too much of your emotion involved in your investing. You just want to keep it simple and consistent. So boring is a good thing. A lack of drama is a good thing. Something that is less likely to invoke your emotions to a point to where you make bad decisions. So boring is overall a good thing. Let's go back up to basic. It's all about the basics when you're talking about getting your finances together. It's about following some steps. That's why I like Dave Ramsey's book, The Total Money Makeover. He has baby steps. Now, I don't follow everything with Dave Ramsey, but it was one of the first books that really got me on a path to where I was really starting to get control of my finances and get things going. It was very basic. Having a basic roadmap is a good thing. The other thing that I watch a lot on YouTube, I've talked about this, is The Money Guy. The Money Guy has what's called the FOO, F-O-O, the Financial Order of Operations. It gives you the basics of how to order, getting your finances in order and building wealth. And so these things are good. The basics are good. The basics are the fundamentals rather as well, kind of give you that foundation that you need to get things in order. Now let's move on to benevolent. What does benevolence have to do with it? I might spend just a bit more time on this one. Benevolence is having charity, having care, actually having kindness for others and being charitable. Now, you would think when it comes to finance that maybe this has to do with giving, and it does. You want to be giving of what you can throughout the process of your life, even when you're trying to get out of debt and you're building wealth. All through the process, you want to be charitable. But what this really is a very, very selfish focus. It's you. You need to be charitable to you. The younger you needs to be charitable and care about the future you. Now, I've talked about this some in the past, but I bring it up here again. You need to have benevolence about the future you. When you're younger, you need to be thinking about the future you and care for them. Love the future you. That is what's going to give you the fuel to do the things that you need to do to put that future you in a better place. I shared that with me a little over 14 years ago, well, a lot over 14 years, about 14 years and 5 months now, I believe. I came up, my 40-year-old self put together a 15-year plan. I'm 14 years and 5 months into that 15-year-old plan. I love my 40-year-old self for doing what it takes to care for and have benevolence for my 55-year-old self. And that is absolutely what you need to do. Have benevolence for your future self. I remember watching a program, or I don't know if I was watching it on YouTube or on television, but in the program they were talking about retiring and how young people have a hard time envisioning their own retirement, and that because they have a hard time seeing themselves older. And so what this program talked about was this computer program where they're able to take pictures of the person and then digitally go in and manipulate the photograph to age them into the future. Maybe they're 25 and it ages them to 65 in the photo so that they can see who they will be when they're 65. And, I remember them being shocked at seeing themselves at that age. When you're 25, it's hard to see yourself with gray hair, or in my case, no hair. So it's hard to envision that at 25. It's hard to see that the future wrinkles. It's hard to think about how physically you will be different at that age. But it's a smart exercise to look into that, to care about that, to see that future, to have benevolence for yourself, okay? And to get ready for that. And you get ready for that by everything that we've discussed on these walks in the past. By having that $2,000 emergency fund. By taking a look at if your company has a 401k or some retirement program that has a match, taking advantage of that. Also, taking care of consumer debt, getting out of debt, and then starting to invest in, at least what I recommend from research, very simple things like a S&P 500 index fund or a total stock market fund. So take a look at these 3 words, okay? The 3 words of benevolence, and feel the bliss of benevolence. That's another word that goes along with benevolence, the bliss, because you're going to be so joyous when you reach your older age if your younger self takes care of your older self. If you're in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s, and you take this information seriously, and you make it to 65, and you've done what it takes to secure your retirement, you're going to feel the bliss of that decision. You are going to know that you've done what it takes to be better off at age 65. So you feel that bliss. And you can see the brilliance of the basics. When you do those fundamentals, all of those things that we talked about, and you cover the basics, man, it's going to put you so far ahead. No need to be fancy now. Just take care of the basics. And the brilliance of the basics will carry you forward. And then finally, the boring. See the beauty in the boring. Let me tell you this one. Think about it. People who go on a vacation, they spend months and months and months and months working to go on a week or 2 vacation. And often they're going to some destination like a beach. And what do they do when they get there? They get their little umbrellas and they get their lawn chairs, or their beach chairs rather, and they're looking out at the ocean with their little umbrella drink. And if you think about it, that's a boring activity, right? But no, it's not a boring activity. It's a beautiful activity. Seeing that water roll in and hearing it roll in, being able to relax, that's the beauty of the boring. So do those things. Be benevolent. Have the basics covered and embrace the boring and see the beauty in it. Thank you for listening.